Right. Hello, I'm Claire the Oily Witch, and you are watching me on At Wise Women Weekdays. And today I'm joined by the lovely hypnotist Robin Ferrier, who happens to, in fact, be my hypnotist. And I thought it'd be really interesting if we had a bit of a dialogue about hypnotherapy and the ways in which it can help our lives. Because, well, certainly I find it's really important to access the back brain if you want to change habits. It's certainly an easier way to change habits than the suffering of building up loads of willpower. Anyway, Robin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, Claire. Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to ply my wares, so to speak. And as you'll have gathered, I hail from north of the border. I've traveled the world as an airline pilot over the years, and more recently, i.e., over the last 3 or 4 years, I've found a new calling in life, which is to help others through the healing modality of hypnotherapy. There's a long story behind that, which people can take advantage of if they look at my website. But the simple truth of the matter is, I love anything to do with the mind. It fascinates me, and that's why I'm drawn to it. And I find now, as time grows on, people need help of a mental nature in ways now that we can't even begin to comprehend. And I just want to play my part in that.
I guess you've gone from flying people through the sky to flying them through their subconscious.
Oh, I like that. Yes, I think I may have to use that myself.
It's true though. You're captaining their journeys through their own.
I am their shepherd through the mire. Yes, indeed I am.
Oh, that speaks to your religious background, Robin.
Yes, indeed. Dad was a minister, but I never quite felt the necessity to join the members of the cloth. It really wasn't for me. I suppose I'm the black sheep of the family, and that prepared me for an awful lot of business to come later on with other people's uh, mental health issues. So that let's just say I've felt my own pain, so I can help people with theirs.
But I would say that kind of like I personally am not a great fan of the modern church or the ancient church or any type of church. So I would say that maybe actually your skills are a form of ministry because it's the same kind of intention, which is to guide people through life.
I think in that sense, yes, absolutely. I'm just not wrapped in the same dogma that the
Exactly. But we're in the age of Aquarius now. So
hmm,
kind of like you are following in kind of your family footsteps because it wasn't just a family
yes, indeed, indeed.
in a more enlightened, well, just a more modern, up-to-date way. That's the way I'd put it.
I would say, yeah, I like that.
So, I wanted to ask you, or I wanted you to tell people, how hypnotherapy works briefly and some of the areas it can help people in. Because I guess, like, can it help with menopause? What about giving up caffeine? I think of menopause and I think of caffeine because of the kind of people I'm treating all the time, which are basically
Hmm,
asking me questions about why they've got menopausal symptoms. And I'm saying to them, you've got menopausal symptoms because your body is telling you that one of your habits is no longer working for you, or more
yes.
one of your habits, and you need to change them. And then people think, oh, how am I going to do this? And some people find it easier than others. So I
Hmm.
hypnotherapy is just perfectly placed for that kind of thing.
Well, in answer to your question, first of all, hypnosis is a an age-old trade and art that goes back thousands and thousands of years to even before the ancient Egyptians. So it's an old art form which has developed with the years. We've now applied a fair degree of science and knowledge to that art, but it is still an art form. It's applied by people who are creative, inventive, and determined and motivated, and use the skills that have been gleaned by people much smarter than me over thousands of years. And I suppose in ancient times, shamans might have used hypnotherapy to achieve their given aims, but we called it something different. And hence now why people still are somewhat, shall we say, reticent when it comes to hypnosis and hypnotherapy because it smacks of magic. And it has magic properties about it in that you can achieve wonderful things in a very short space of time, but it's all based on pure science and the arts and the crafts and the skills that have been garnered over thousands of years. So, can it help with menopause? Can it help with all sorts of things? Yes, of course it can. In fact, anything that is based within the mind, you can adapt and change and enhance. And so, with specific emphasis on menopause, that's a change in physical attributes over a period of time. But in addition, there are changes in mentality because we all react to changes in our physical state in a different way. Some people take it on the chin and deal with it in a very stoic sense, and other people, let's just say, they don't deal with it in quite the same positive way. And what I find is that when you deal with a situation in a less than positive fashion, that can have physical aspects to it. So what was already, shall we say, a challenge becomes so much harder because our response to it has been less than optimal. Now, please don't let anybody think for a minute that I'm standing as a man in judgment of any person who's going through the menopause. Not at all. But I do know that there are some ways to deal with it that are better than others. And so my particular role in any situation is to enhance the mental process by understanding where the basis of, shall we call it, misconception of a situation comes from, and then transforming that misconception into something that works better for the client or the patient in a way which allows them to heal themselves, because it's not me that's doing the healing. I'm just a shepherd, really. I'm guiding them to a place of healing. It's the person who heals themselves, and that's the magic. That really is the magic. It's where somebody begins to realize that whilst it's not their fault, they have a role in their own healing. And that is quite a major move forward for anybody in a mental health situation. And so that's a long answer to a short question. Can it help the menopause? Can it help anything to do with the mind? Most certainly.
And so some people are like really freaked out by it. They're like, oh my God, I would never allow someone in my head. What are they going to do when they're in there? You know, what happens if because they've seen kind of hypnotherapists or hypnotists,
Yes.
sorry, difference on
Yeah.
stage, putting people, and they're like, well, they get my bank
Yes.
details as soon as I switch off. So
Yes.
can you just explain a little bit about like how the process works?
Well, the whole concept of hypnosis is basically by relaxing the mind to the point whereby that part of you, which we've now learned to call the critical factor, is relaxed to the point that we can talk to your subconscious mind. Now, that's like drawing back a very thin veil between one part of your brain and another part of your brain. The subconscious is the part that we know during our waking hours very little about. We're not aware of it, we're not conscious of it. All of our actions and our feelings are driven by the conscious mind. But beneath that level of consciousness that we normally operate from, there is the subconscious level. And that is a whole universe of fascinating stuff. And we could talk about that forever. But just to explain that all of our motivations, feelings, and actions actually stem from the subconscious mind, but we can't access that part of our mind under normal circumstances. So we are creating, shall we call it, abnormal circumstances, a circumstance where the conscious mind is so relaxed that it gives access to that other part of our mind that is normally blocked. And so that then allows us to have a conversation. But you were talking about feelings of being out of control or having somebody else control you. That actually isn't possible. And the reason I say that is that your subconscious mind will never do anything that goes against your natural values, whether you suggest it or not. And I mean, there's so many films that would show you people squawking like ducks or robbing banks and things like that. Now, let's just talk about, clucking like a duck. That comes when you go on stage at a theatre and you're naturally inclined to want to join in with that sort of thing anyway. So your natural value is, let's have a bit of fun with this. So if you're asked to, cluck like a duck, you will. But if you go on that stage and you are asked to rob a bank, you won't just get up and walk to the nearest bank. You'll just probably freeze and realize that that can't work for you because you have a natural value of decency that says you don't rob banks. And however hard that hypnotist tries, you will not comply.
That's
And
so
so,
interesting. That's really, really interesting, Robin, because I don't think I ever knew that, the fact that there was kind of a limit to kind
mm,
of what could be expected. So in
mm,
my language, would that mean that you wouldn't be able to do anything that wasn't for your highest good? Well, in fact, no, it's more conscious than that, isn't it?
I think the concept of highest good is an area that I can't really debate with you just at the moment. All I can tell you is that if you hold certain values that might not be, shall we say, of the spiritually highest, you will comply with those values that you have established already over as long as you've been living. So you cannot override those through hypnosis. However, if you are of a certain nature and you've been brought up in a bad environment and you feel that robbing banks is a natural part of life, and somebody says, well, off you go and rob a bank,
You'll do
then
it.
that's a different story because your values say that robbing banks is okay.
I get it. I get it.
Does that make sense?
It does, and it's just super interesting. Would there ever be an instant? So, I guess in that case, if you're trying to give something up, like you're trying to give up cigarettes or caffeine
Mm.
or something like that, because you know that you should give it up, but you don't really want to give it up, but you want
Ah,
to give it up, where does that sit on the value chain?
well, there's a very interesting story. And of course, when I talk to people who are contemplating therapy, I ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, one being, I'm so disinterested in this, I just don't even want to have this conversation, to 10 being, oh my God, I'm so stressed by this. I'm contemplating doing something stupid. And so with that situation, if you're utterly disinterested in the situation and you're just there because somebody told you to go, you will not change because your heart's not in it, your soul's not in it, and your mind is not in it. And I can say whatever I like. If you don't want to change, you will not change. So I have to establish a level of motivation of a customer or a client before I take on anybody as a client. Because if you don't want to be there, I can't help you. And
Yeah.
that happens particularly with things like smoking.
Yeah, and also I'm just thinking about wives booking husbands in and saying, just go and see the hypnotherapist. He'll sort you out. And the husband turns up and
Yeah,
mm,
it
like
does happen.
about weight loss and stuff. I mean, I used hypnotherapy to give up smoking. It was the only thing that actually worked. I tried everything. I went through the
Mm,
smoking support groups. I took the medicine that you can take, everything. And
yeah,
hypnotherapy continues to work, what,
good.
15 years on? Because I have tried at various times in that 15 years to just think, oh,
Mm,
cheeky cigarette.
yeah.
Woo! No way. It just, I literally cannot. It's like there's a block here that's like, you
Mm,
stop putting anything in your lungs. It's brilliant.
yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. So,
Well, that's wonderful, and you're a poster girl for the hypnotherapy profession.
yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that worked for you.
Tell me, or tell us, I keep getting these adverts from Marissa Peer that keep
Hmm.
popping up all over my
Yes,
YouTube channel. Why don't you
yes,
come and do rapid transformational hypnosis, RTT? You know, this is what it's
yeah,
all about. And you're an
yeah.
RTT kind of practitioner. So,
Hmm.
is RTT?
Well, RTT is another brand of hypnotherapy. There are many brands, and by brand, I mean styles and different types of hypnotherapy. Um, RTT came about probably about 20 years ago, as you mentioned, created by Marissa Peer, who started her life, baby minding and looking after old people, and generally finding that there were some common traits and attributes within people who were going through changes in life or struggles and challenges. And she began to apply them both as a counselor and a therapist. And she ultimately came to realize that there was a gap in the market for people who were continually visiting counselors and therapists, for weeks, if not years, if not decades, continually spending what to me seems like a vast amount of money and frankly getting nowhere, or maybe even more frustrated. And so the concept behind rapid transformational therapy is that you don't spend years talking about your innermost secrets. It's meant to be something that is done quickly and efficiently and profoundly, so that what we do is we find the reason behind why you do or feel the way you feel. Because with knowledge comes power, and that power is gained from an understanding of why you do what you do. Because without that, it's almost like putting a sticking plaster on top of a rather pustular wound. Because until you actually know what's going on,
You can't heal it. Yeah.
you haven't really solved the problem.
Yeah.
And so I realize that's a bit of a grim image, but that's exactly what it is. You cover things up, and that doesn't really help. So we want to get to the absolute base of where the problem comes from. And with that knowledge, you also can put two and two together to see the jigsaw of your life develop in front of you, because the secrets are out. You understand the reasons behind why you are the way you are. And with that knowledge, you can also begin to understand the actions and rules of other people. So you can begin to see why they did what they did. And that can sometimes lead to forgiveness, which is a powerful thing in its own right. And it is rapid. It may not be overnight, but it certainly doesn't compare to spending hours and hours, week after week, year after year, in the therapy chair of some Harley Street psychologist and spending vast amounts of money that, frankly, these days people just don't have.
Well, some people have it, some people don't.
Some do, some don't.
Depends on how your abundance manifestation is going. Yeah,
Indeedy duty,
absolutely.
you have it.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, so you're looking for the reason that created the filter that the subconscious is judging the mind, the judging, because the subconscious rules 95% of our waking life.
It's 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 super powerful, and I think if people truly understood the role that the subconscious has in their life, they would spend a lot more time dealing with their, I'm so tempted just to say their shit.
Yeah, well, they're filters, isn't it? It's like
Yes.
basically what we're trying to do
Mm.
is,
But
well,
you see, most people will just brush all of that under the table or under the carpet. And that's fine temporarily. But the trouble is, there are times when certain triggers arrive in your life, and it'll bring all these things that you'd hidden away back into the spotlight again, probably at the time you're least able to deal with it because you're vulnerable. You've been weakened in some way, shape, or form, and that's why these old negative feelings come back. And so that's why people like me are here to try and take the load off others who struggle and to provide an explanation for why things are the way they are. I think sometimes people also feel different. They feel scared that they're weird or bonkers or one way, shape, or form, they're incurably different. And that leaves them feeling vulnerable and scared. And 99% of the people I talk to are not so different that they can be considered in any way abnormal. We're all just struggling through the same mire. We just deal with it differently.
and it's back down to those filters again, I guess, and how broken
Mm.
you feel. Because if you feel
Yes.
like your filters, well, first of all, it's recognizing that you have the filters
Yeah.
because you might not be aware of how strong the subconscious is in terms of conditioning your life. And then it's like how you reprogram those filters so that you stop giving yourself a hard time. Because as soon as you do that, in my world, you change
Hmm.
the frequency. So
Yeah.
your frequency changes, you change the dial slightly. So you
Yes.
get a kind of a different outcome. You're rewriting what you
Yeah.
actually attracted. So it's
Yes.
kind of a recalibration, as it were.
And I liked your use of the term reprogram. I mean, it does smack a little bit of mind control. And that's one thing I didn't want people to think that hypnosis is all about. It's not mind control because I can't control anything within anybody. But what I can do is allow you the opportunity to look at your own situation and give you the tools to change your own mindset to a way of thinking that will be better for you and will allow you to heal yourself. And that's quite profound. And
And what,
so,
yeah, and also I'd say that people may have an expectation that you're going to suddenly appear with something that ticks in front of them, that
no,
they basically are
no.
going to go into this state. And it's not like that at all, is it? There's a very kind of,
Well, the greatest irony is that most people afterwards say, "Well, yeah, you didn't, you didn't hypnotize me. No, no, you didn't." And that's great because then I know I did my job. Because you're not meant to feel anything strange. You're not meant to feel woozy or ill or anything.
invaded.
No, absolutely not. You are in control 100% of the time. All I can do is, with your acceptance, guide you in a direction which will serve you rather than to allow you to continue acting and believing things in a way which just doesn't work for you anymore.
And so, how long would a typical hypnotherapy session last, Robin?
Different modalities have different periods of time. In RTT, we tend to go from an hour and a half to 2 hours, and that sounds like quite a lot, but that actually goes quite quickly.
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes, because you are fascinated by how things have come to be, that time literally just disappears. So 2 hours, I would suggest, is what you would need to have a full session. And I personally also offer about 10 days later a coaching session of 1 hour because I do believe that after our initial session, it doesn't stop you thinking of I wonder what that means. I wonder how that all fits together. And maybe what do I do with that information? And if a therapist just leaves it at the point whereby he gives you or she gives you lots of information and ideas, that's all well and good. But I think sometimes people are a bit overwhelmed, a bit uncertain, and need a little bit more guidance after that as to how you deal with all this information. Sometimes it can be quite, you know, shocking, quite revealing. And so you need to know how to deal with that. And that's where that hours coaching comes in. And in addition, what I forgot to mention was that I provide a 15-minute recording, because what I think people need to understand is that a lot of what happens after the initial RTT session. I provide you with a recording which helps to retrain the mind in a way of thinking. And it's been discovered by neuroscientists that if you repeat a process daily for approximately 21 days, you create a new habit.
3 weeks.
I mean, you can, if you do anything for 21 days, you're going to get to a point whereby you almost don't need to think about it. It just happens automatically. And so you're creating a new habit of thinking and a new habit of believing. And so that recording provides you with that ongoing support that you need to create that habit. So all three things together are super powerful. And I do find that this particular way of healing to be so profound and satisfying from my point of view.
And just kind of like, to give up smoking, I'm guessing a single session.
Single session, possibly, but if I'm quite honest with you, I think it'd probably be better to have a few more than that. The reason being, and I can only say this from my own personal experience, you got to find the reason why you can't give up smoking. And I find that there are many, many reasons for it. You become addicted, and there's a physical reason behind that. But what we're talking about is the thing that is not physically related. The body craves the nicotine. The body also craves the habit, though. And
That's it.
so, for example, you like the idea of hanging out with people outside a pub because at least you get to talk to people. Whereas if you sat in the pub and just sat with your drink and talked to nobody, that'd be a bit miserable. Now, there's some people that just have not come to terms with that yet. And I'm being super facile here. This is not a typical thing, but it gives you an example of what it is people need to deal with, because it's not just the addiction, it's their needs, wants, and desires for other things in their life that smoking provides them with some kind of benefit for in some way, shape, or form. So I would suggest that one session isn't quite enough to deal with all the other things that go into becoming a cigarette addict or a smoking addict. But
Or
one session is a damn good start.
or I guess weight loss as well. It's all the same thing, because it's basically, it's why have you created it's the layers, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The
That's correct.
understanding that when I gave
Yeah.
up smoking at the time, the guy was like, I'll charge you once. It was 120
Mm-hmm.
pounds 15 years ago. And he
Yeah.
said, you can come back as many times as it takes. Like, and I went back again and it took two
Mm-hmm.
times. So, and then I was fine.
Good.
So yeah, okay. So just so to manage people's expectations, and it might
Well,
the things.
could I just say generally, Claire, that I don't offer a standard uh, one size fits all process, because I need to understand the individual. And so that's why I go through what we call the discovery call. And you've done it yourself. I ask you lots of questions about your past and your present and what you hope for the future, and then come to some sort of view as to how I can help you
Yeah,
or not. Because there are some things and some people at some time in their life that I am not able to help because simply I don't either have the experience in that specialized field, or there's somebody else who can do it better than I can. And because I know people in the industry, I'm able to direct them towards those people. And so that's called a referral. And I'm more than happy to do that for anybody that comes to me with any problem.
Okay. Well, thank you, Robin. I think that's been a wonderful explanation.
Thank you.
Explanation. Yeah, I got the word right. Of hypnotherapy. I thought I said something completely different there. And yeah, I'll put your details in the YouTube box underneath. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you to have a discovery call, a free discovery call, I'm guessing.
Absolutely free. No. Say, for example, you don't like my Scottish accent. That's fine. There's no pressure.
No, well, I'm sure they would love it, Robin. I certainly do. All right. Well, thank you. And thanks, everybody. Please like and subscribe at Wise Women Weekdays. We are back every day with interesting and scintillating content to make your lives much more easy and much more in flow. Thank you. Take care, Robin. Thank you.